So I'm looking at a case of Juha Kiskonen, and I've been trying to find information about him, about the case on the internet, and there's remarkably few stories. I could only find one from when he was initially brought under police custody. So I'm just going to go through what I have found. So this is an article by Daniel McGuckin and Ava Benny Morrison from the 7th of August 2020 in the Daily Telegraph. United Kingdom of Australia. Sovereign citizen Juha Kiskonen charged threatening police. A leader of an underground sovereign movement which recognises a Queensland-based King of Australia has been charged after allegedly threatening to snap necks of police and army personnel. Juha Kiskonen has fronted court after allegedly threatening police officers. Picture from Facebook. A leader of an underground movement who allegedly threatened to snap the necks of police officers if they refused to support the United Kingdom of Australia has fronted court after police allegedly found a working firearm in his southwest Sydney home. Juha Kiskonen of Gregory Hills is accused of leading plans for a rally at the Hyde Park War Memorial, where a true Australian flag will be raised in honour of the Kingdom's recognised Australia Day. The 50-year-old was arrested and charged when police officers from the Fixated Persons Unit raided his home and allegedly located the weapon. And there's a picture in this article of another man. It's not Juha. It says under the photo, United Kingdom of Australia, demonstrators gather outside the War Memorial in Hyde Park. Picture John Granger. The sovereign citizen, didn't mean to do that. The sovereign citizen told Campbelltown local court any police efforts to stop the, quote, peaceful, end quote, event would have been a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. More than 40 people holding Australia Red Ensign flags still turned out to the protest at the War Memorial in July. The demonstration was relatively peaceful until the group exceeded the number of people who could gather outside due to COVID-19. One man was issued with a fine for refusing to comply with a police direction to move on. So that might be this man. Yes, strange stuff. There's another picture of Juha Kiskonen, 50, allegedly threatened police officers through his United Kingdom of Australia. Picture from Facebook. Kiskonen is allegedly a leader of the United Kingdom of Australia movement, which is run through Facebook. The United Kingdom of Australia movement, which is run through Facebook and recognised the Queensland-based King of Australia. Members connect and coordinate events through Zoom calls, the court heard. A YouTube video uploaded in May featured the 50-year-old threatening police officers accused of telling one detective, "Is your job worth your life, mate?" And we have a picture of this supposed rally. It doesn't look like a rally to me. Well, protesters gathered. They're protesters, apparently. This guy in his suit. The protesters. They're not shoes for a protest. Protesters, they say, gathered at 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. at the War Memorial on Friday. Picture John Granger. The video allegedly captured Kiskonen stating police officers and army personnel would be held to account if they didn't pledge allegiance to the Kingdom of Australia. Yes, the video allegedly captured Kiskonen stating police officers and army personnel would be, quote, held to account, end quote, if they didn't pledge allegiance to the Kingdom of Australia. Quote, there will be consequences for the treason, end quote, he allegedly said. Quote, they will be hung and their necks snapped. If they continue to go against the King of Australia, they will be hanged. Not going to beat around the bush, I will get a bit of pleasure out of it, end quote. He has been charged with 2 counts of use carriage service to menace and harass and 2 firearm-related offences. The firearm-related offences are interesting, to say the least. And once again, a photo of another man. Again, the same guy. At least one man. Well, I'm guessing it was only one man because they've pictured him 3 times now. At least one man was fined for refusing a police move on direction. Picture John Granger. A police prosecutor opposed bail for the Gregory Hills man, saying the community would be at risk due to his disregard to state and Commonwealth law. Kiskonen, wearing a fluoro fleece jumper, represented himself and told the court he couldn't enter a plea due to his allegiance to the Australian Kingdom. He was refused bail with the matter to return to Picton Local Court on August 25th. Okay, and that's the end of that article. So that's the only article I could find from the date, or around the just after the date he was his home was raided by the Fixated Persons Unit of the New South Wales Police Force. So yeah, and then we move on to 1 year later, where at least there are a few articles. So this one is the Daily Mail by Levi Parsons for Daily Mail Australia. Self-proclaimed King of Australia posted extreme social media messages calling for police to be hanged, in capital letters, with cops fearing he may strike again. So I think this one is this is a very misleading or just outright false headline. Self-proclaimed King of Australia. I've not seen any of Juha's videos where he proclaimed himself the King of Australia. Anyway, we continue. A sovereign citizen, it's an interesting term, who was jailed over a firearm charge is set to be released. Okay. So, I thought he was jailed over 2 firearm charges and 2 used carriage service to menace and harass. But Juha Kiskonen is leader of the conspiracy-driven United Kingdom of Australia. New South Wales Supreme Court heard that Kiskonen called for police to be hanged. Sorry, my mouse is a bit touchy. The leader of a bizarre movement which believes the government is illegitimate called for police to be hanged and says capital letters make a person a corporate shell, is set to be released from jail this week. Sovereign citizen Juha Kiskonen was found guilty of 2 counts of using a carriage service to menace and harass and 2 counts of possessing an unregistered firearm last year and received 12 months behind bars. Police uncovered the illegal weapon when officers from the New South Wales Fixated Persons Unit raided his southwestern Sydney. I guess they meant to say home, as part of an investigation into the United Kingdom of Australia leader. But although Kiskonen is set to walk free, New South Wales prosecutors have applied for an extended supervision order, fearing that his ideology may drive him to carry out politically motivated violence. And here's a picture of Juha. Doesn't he look dangerous? His shirt says, "Went on a diet. It was the worst 4 hours of my life." With a jumper tied around his waist. Sovereign citizen Juha Kiskonen, pictured, was found guilty of 2 counts of using a carriage service to menace or harass and 2 counts of possessing an unregistered firearm last year and received 12 months behind bars. And this article has a little inset, what is a sovereign citizen? This is how they cover this stuff. The contemporary sovereign belief system is based on a decades-old conspiracy theory. Sovereign citizens believe that they, not judges, juries, law enforcement, or elected officials, should decide which laws to obey and which to ignore. Most sovereign citizens also don't believe they should have to pay taxes. As part of the strange ideology, sovereigns believe maritime law should be used govern even on land. That's it's almost a sentence, but it's a very strange one. I'm going to read that again because this is fascinating. As part of the strange ideology, sovereigns believe maritime law should be used govern even on land. Yes, there's a lot of things wrong with that sentence. Anyway, moving on. They also believe capital letters are used on birth certificates to make individuals a corporate entity, not a sovereign person. Sovereign person is source, Southern Poverty Law Center, US. So what that has to do with the United Kingdom of Australia, I'm not sure. To me, that just that seems like buzzwords and a smear, basically, and a complete no effort made to actually understand or to listen to what someone like Juha is actually speaking about in his videos, which is still up on YouTube. Interestingly, it seemed to have no problem censoring people for very little. Anyway, continuing Levi Parsons' article. The broader sovereign citizen conspiracy movement rejects the enforcement of all laws and taxation, considering them to be illegitimate. Kiskonen's United Kingdom of Australia group recognises an Australian-based king as the true head of state and insists only maritime law should apply to individuals even on dry land. Yeah, so we've got this complete nonsense repeated here. And I've also repeated a spelling mistake. It's amazing the deterioration in journalism. Kiskonen's United Kingdom of Australia group recognises an Australian-based king as the true head of state and insists only maritime law should apply to individuals, even on dry land. I'd be fascinated to hear where they got that notion from. The New South Wales Supreme Court heard on Wednesday that in his YouTube rants, Kiskonen had described police and politicians as traitors and called for law enforcement officers to be hanged. News.com reported. So is that News.com reported that the Supreme Court heard that? Parsons isn't actually, he's saying that that's what News.com said of what the Supreme Court said. The threat is that if police now continue to perform their duty, they will be hanged at some point in the future, either by a military tribunal or under the direction or under the authority of the King, State Prosecutor Barrister James Emmett said. Those threats in the plaintiff's submission meet the definition of a terrorist act because they are a threat of an action which will cause death. In one specific example highlighted by Mr. Emmett, the person on Facebook asked whether Kiskonen wanted to kill a man because he disagrees with your claims. Kiskonen responded by saying, "You've got a soft spot for traitors." So, okay, that doesn't seem to me like a direct threat. Kiskonen's pictured United Kingdom of Australia group recognised an Australian-based king as the true head of state and insists only maritime law should apply to individuals even on dry land. My goodness. Excuse me. Before he was rounded up by police in July last year, Kiskonen was planning a demonstration at Sydney's Hyde Park, where his crew of conspiracy theorists planned to raise the true Australian flag, the red maritime flag. There is so many things wrong with that sentence. Once again, labelling them conspiracy theorists derides. Firstly, they want people to dismiss and not listen to what this guy might actually have to say. Kiskonen was planning a demonstration. I don't know that that's true. I don't think that's true. And the true Australian flag, the red maritime flag, the flag that they're referring to behind Juha in this picture is the land war flag. It's 3x2 dimensions, so it can't be a maritime flag. Anyway, Kiskonen's barrister, Matthew Johnston, argued the supervision order should be dismissed by the court, scoffing at the idea his client should be considered a terrorism risk. He told the court Kiskonen had been diagnosed with schizophrenia 25 years ago and that tracking his every movement by fitting him with electronic monitoring devices would not be appropriate given his mental health issues. Mr. Johnston said his client has shown dramatic improvement since he began psychological treatment and is now disavowing many of his long-held conspiracy beliefs. So, since he began psychological treatment, that's interesting. He also argued that Kiskonen's social media videos and posts did not breach any guidelines and did not pose a serious risk of violent incitement. That material is still available to like-minded people. We say that significantly diminishes what's raised as a risk issue, Mr. Johnson. Justice Julia Lonergan is set to make a ruling on the case next week. Okay, that's the end of that. That's the end of that article, I believe. Yeah. So there was one other article that came out at the time. Here we go. So this is by Steve Zemek, came out the same date, July 21st, 2021. So this is for news.com.au. Sovereign citizens, there's this term again. Sovereign citizens' violent Facebook calls to kill traitors revealed in court. Goodness. How sensational. The government has attempted to place a supervision order on a sovereign citizen who had previously called for police to be hanged. And there's this video embedded in the article, which I'll just play you because it's interesting, and it tells you how they're trying to frame your impressions of Juha. Is it going to play?
Mate, so before you start talking, traffic stop, you've failed to provide ID at the border pass.
I wasn't asked to provide ID.
Oh yeah, well I'm asking for you now.
So I asked the man there.
Yep.
So what's your name, sorry?
Vaughan from Yallarva, Queensland Police.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so you work for the corporation known as the Queensland Police in all capital letters?
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever.
So not whatever. Am I a man?
What do you identify as?
No, it's a yes or no question. Am I a man?
It's 2020, mate. What do you identify as?
Okay, so that's not Juha. This is again a sovereign citizen has had his comeuppance at the Queensland border, encountering a cop who wasn't going to stand for any nonsense. Oh, that's an interesting interpretation of that little video. Anyway, this is all an aside. I just wanted to show you that to show you how they portray people that have ideas that they don't understand. A leader of an underground movement which refuses to recognize the legitimacy of the government called for, quote, traitors, end quote, to be killed and for police to be hanged, a court has heard. Juha Kiskonen was last year imprisoned after police from the Fixated Persons Unit raided his southwestern Sydney home, during which they seized weapons. Police described him as the leader of the United Kingdom of Australia group, an offshoot of the Sovereign Citizens Movement, which believes the government is illegitimate and refuses to acknowledge its laws. Kiskonen was jailed for 12 months after being found guilty of 2 counts of using a carriage service to menace or harass and 2 counts of possessing an unregistered firearm. He is due to be released from jail next week. The state of New South Wales has applied for an extended supervision order to keep tabs on him once he is released from prison, fearing he is a danger of committing or inciting politically motivated violence. The New South Wales Supreme Court heard on Wednesday that in one Facebook post he was asked by another user whether he wanted to kill a man because he disagrees with your claims, end quote. Barrister James Emmett, appearing for the state of New South Wales, said that he responded, Juha, I'm guessing, quote, "You've got a soft spot for traitors," end quote. Before his arrest in July last year, the Gregory Hills man was leading plans for a rally at Sydney's Hyde Park, where his group was hoping to raise the quote, true, end quote, Australian flag. Mr. Emmett said the United Kingdom of Australia recognised an Australian-based king as the true head of state. The court heard that in his videos uploaded to YouTube, he described police, politicians and others who held public office as, quote, traitors, end quote. And Mr. Emmett described one video from July last year in which he called for police officers to be hanged. Quote, the risk is of the defendant making threats, the likes of which he has already made, end quote, Mr. Emmett said. Quote, the threat is that if police now continue to perform their duty, they will be hanged at some point in the future, either by military tribunal or under the direction or under the authority of the king. Those threats in the plaintiff's submission meet the definition of a terrorist act because they are a threat of an action which will cause death. End quote. And a picture of Juha again. Juha Kiskonen is arguing he should not be subject to electronic monitoring when he is released from jail later this month. However, Kiskonen's barrister Matthew Johnston called for the application to be dismissed, arguing his client was not at risk of committing a terrorist act. He argued against some of the proposed restrictions, including electronic monitoring and providing a schedule of movements, claiming they were not appropriate given Kiskonen's mental health issues. The court heard that Kiskonen had been diagnosed with schizophrenia 25 years ago, and Mr. Johnston said he had shown significant improvement since undergoing psychological treatment, including disavowing some of his previously held beliefs. Mr. Johnston also argued that Kiskonen's online rants could not be considered dangerous because they are still online, and if they had breached guidelines, they would have been deleted. Quote, what they are raising is concern that the rhetoric or statements of the defendant which may incite others or encourage others, which could amount to some form of terrorist act, end quote, Mr. Johnston said. Quote, that material is still available to like-minded people. We say that significantly diminishes what's raised as a risk issue, end quote. He added that the only weapons found in his possession when police raided his property were plastic guns which fire plastic pellets. That's very interesting. However, Mr. Emmett pointed out that the weapons were classed as prohibited and it was possible to commit a terrorist act with a plastic gun. Justice Julia Lonergan reserved her decision, which she said she hoped to hand down next week. Okay, that's the end of that article. And the only other article we have to look at that I could find is this one, which came out following Justice Julia Lonergan's decision. So this is, This is Margaret Schajkowski, updated 29th of July 2021. New South Wales judge rejects terror risk claim. New South Wales has lost a bid for a supervision order for sovereign citizens supporter said to be at risk of committing a terrorism act. An anti-government believer who maintained police would be hanged won't be subject to a supervision order despite authorities contending he's at risk of committing a terrorism act. Juha Kiskonen, 51, is due for release at midnight on Thursday after serving a 1-year jail term for 2 counts of using a carriage service to menace or harass and 2 firearm offences relating to a gel blaster pistol found at his Sydney home in July 2020. The truck driver was a member of the United Kingdom of Australia, UKOA in brackets, a sovereign citizens movement that doesn't recognise Australian laws and contends they shouldn't and don't apply to them. Seems that nobody actually looked into the United Kingdom of Australia, or listen to Juha's videos. Anyway, the state of New South Wales applied to the Supreme Court for a 28-day interim supervision order with a view to obtaining a 3-year extended supervision order on specific conditions, including electronic monitoring. The state's lawyers referred to Facebook materials and videos Kiskonen uploaded to YouTube, which could amount to advocating support for violent extremism. It's an interesting sentence, which could amount to advocating support for violent extremism. They included a video containing comments implying that certain police activity was treason, that the police are a quote, foreign military threatening peaceful civilians, end quote, and that the police should be exposed to the punishment of hanging. But Justice Julian Lonergan on Thursday dismissed the application and ordered the state to pay Kiskonen's legal costs. Quote, I do not accept that there is a high degree of probability that the defendant poses an unacceptable risk of committing a serious terrorism offence if not kept under supervision under the order, end quote, she said. During this time in jail, he went on a hunger strike, was psychotic, and was treated for his delusional mental health issues. In June, he told a specialist he no longer believed things about the Australian government or other conspiracies. So in June, this is after he's been in prison for 12 months. Quote, the evidence taken at its highest is equivocal as to whether the defendant currently stands regarding his beliefs or otherwise in the doctrines of the UKOA, end quote, the judge said. Quote, I also doubt that the type of activities the defendant might engage in, even if he was still a believer, would, properly considered, amount to a serious terrorism offence, end quote. Kiskonen was arrested in July 2020 after being monitored by the New South Wales Fixated Persons Unit. He had been involved in UKOA plans for an Australia Day, a quote, Australia Day ceremony, end quote, at major war memorials around the country where any national flags were to be removed, replaced with their own red ensign. So that's interesting that now, after the case has been dismissed, they're referring to the plans more accurately as a ceremony rather than a protest or demonstration. His carriage service offences related to YouTube videos, which included a statement that those who didn't swear allegiance to the Kingdom of Australia, quote, will be hung and their necks snapped, end quote. In arguing against the imposition of a supervision order, Kiskonen's lawyers said the evidence did not lead to a conclusion that he had been making a, quote, call to arms, end quote, to his associates to hang police or engage in any act of violence. Quote, in fact, there was a number of statements that show an intention to act peacefully and that he expected others to act peacefully, end quote, they said. They also referred to the absence of any relevant terrorism intelligence. I'm going to read that again. They also referred to the absence of any relevant terrorism intelligence. Submitting the police case was full of speculation and opinion without real foundation as to what other unidentified people might do. And that's the end of that article. So this has already gone on longer than I'd planned, but yes, stay tuned to this story. It's interesting stuff.